Hello everyone, thanks for coming back. I am curious about a few things really. But as I was mentioning before, here in Canada where I'm currently living, we have a great deal of problems with our government because the government has ultimate control over everyone since the government of Canada chooses all of the judges, and the government of Canada has instructed all the judges about how to rule. And I had to look up this, I wanted to look this up, I shouldn't say I had to. There's a poor woman whose husband was killed by a terrorist, a Canadian terrorist, and the new Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, doesn't want to call him a terrorist. He says he was tortured and he had to kill the American soldier. So the terrorist took action against the government of Canada, sued the Crown for, we call it the Crown, we call it the government of Canada. Depends on who wants to hide behind whose skirt. I prefer to think that Canada, the leaders of the government of Canada, like to hide behind Queen Elizabeth's skirt. If they get into any trouble, then they switch to the word crown instead of government, which happens to me a lot when I'm before government people. However, let me just get back to this. I digress. Omar Kahdr is the man's name, and the Prime Minister himself got personally involved and made a payment, had the Crown, the judge, order a payment of $10.5 million. And the Prime Minister made sure that the check was written, delivered, cashed, cleared on one day. And that is impossible in Canada. A government check takes 3 days to clear. But the Prime Minister got personally involved and made sure it cleared on one day. Nobody has seen Omar Kahdr since. Nobody seems to know where the hell he is. The woman in the United States, the surviving spouse of the American soldier who was killed by Mr. Kahdr, got a lawyer to come to Toronto and sought an injunction to freeze the asset, pending a future trial. The judge in Canada said that her actions were extraordinary and threw her application out. Now, in the United States, she had a lawyer from America who had jurisdiction in Canada, member of the bar in Canada. In the United States, that action would have been successful, but in Canada, it is not successful. The government of Canada is protected from the people. This is Napoleonic Code. Nobody understands how important this is until the Crown decides to destroy you, which the Crown does now in Canada. The government of Canada hides behind the Crown's skirt. When the Constitution of Canada was brought from England to Canada, it was brought by a man named Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and the British government did not trust him. So there's a rider on our Constitution. Most people don't know this, but it's true. If the people of Canada make an application to have the British North America Act returned to them, they can make the application to the House of Lords in England, because they realized, as René Lévesque did, that Pierre Elliott Trudeau was turning Canada into a fascist country, a dictatorship that is run by Napoleonic Code. And Napoleonic Code, of the 10 worst producing countries in the world, socially and economically, 7 have Napoleonic Code. Napoleon being the dictator that he was, and some say he was an antichrist. Napoleon realized the power of having control over the people by not allowing them to bring legal cases against the government. He changed the word crown to state. The French nobility, the French crown at that time, could not be prosecuted for any crime. In Canada right now, no one in the government of Canada can be prosecuted successfully. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police have tried many times. They always back down and walk away from their cases. They don't continue. Brian Mulroney, the former Prime Minister, he countersued them for $50 million and was awarded by the judge for $50 million. Now here's the problem in Canada. The Supreme Court of Canada, and I'm going to tell you the woman's name, she just retired, Beverly Ann McLaughlin. Beverly Ann McLaughlin has a stellar background. She went to the University of Alberta, which is in Edmonton, Alberta. She got 3 university degrees in 7 years. By her own statements, she finished off with an LLB, which is a law degree. She started in the Bachelor of Arts program, philosophy, graduated with first-class honors. And then something strange happened. That was 1965 when she graduated. In 1968, in June, she graduated with an LLB with distinction. And in the fall of 1968, she graduated with a master's degree in philosophy. Now, she said she finished her university education in law. That's not true. She finished in philosophy. She continued with the love of her life, which is philosophy. But there's a problem with that law degree, the LLB. In 1965, she just finished a 4-year program. You know, first-class honors. That's really something, because the university I went to, boy, you had to work your tail off for first-class honors. That's really something. But in her final year, 64, 65, she started a law degree at the same time, finishing her final year of philosophy and beginning her first year of law. This is not possible. I don't know of any university that allows this. It's even difficult at the university that I went to get an extra course. If you have to make up a course, it's really hard to do. They don't like it. I mean, they don't want to see you fail, right? The university, you've gotten to your 4th year, say, and this in fact happened to me, and I had a half credit short. So I had to make up an extra class, which was really hard work. I thought it was hard work. I was in sciences. I wasn't in the arts. The arts, we didn't like them. We called them arty-farties and things like that, you know, because it's not empirical. In arts programs, you need to, it's, as it was explained to me by a mathematics professor I had in calculus. As he explained to me, he said, what you are looking at here, if it's not empirical, is game analysis. It is primarily a game here. This is what we're looking at. It's you get a professor, and if you're smart, you'll find out, what did the professor do their master's degree in? What was their specialty? I mean, who did they like? And so you find out who they're really in love with, and then you, when you're doing your essays and things like that, you target that. And when you target that, the professor goes, oh, hey, they're on my side. I'm going to score that a little higher than everybody else. Game theory. And that's truly what it is. I noticed this myself. When I got into 3rd year university, I thought, you know, some of these professors almost come to blows, fistfights, in science. I had a professor, his name was Rainsborough. And Rainsborough's thing is, he's a chemist, and his thing is soap. And he did a lot of research on soap and how soap works, soapifaction it's called, and it's acids and bases and things like that. So he was at a symposium in Halifax, Nova Scotia, prestigious university there, and one person in the audience stood up to contest him on his laboratory results, saying that this is not right. What he's done is not right. He's done it wrong. And Professor Rainsborough is also a Jesuit priest. And I don't know if anybody knows anything about the Jesuits. It's now the current Pope. They have a rather interesting history. It's quite dark, in fact. So anyway, the professor and his antagonist, let's say, got into such a heated discussion. They approached each other in the lecture hall, and they were about to start swinging. You're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. Things like that. That's how it happens in science. But in the arts, it's all very, you have to make an argument. It's almost like law. Maybe that's why. Because you have to make an argument to prove your case, or to convince somebody that you're right and somebody else is wrong. Which is like when the great Stephen Hawking, who just died, happened to be wrong once. Very famously wrong. And he couldn't believe that he was wrong. He had a whole bunch of people, mathematicians, trying to prove that he was right. And some of the mathematicians who were doing the work for him, they contacted him and they said, you have to be wrong here. And Stephen Hawking basically said, no, you're an idiot. Keep doing it. So in the end, he had to admit that he was wrong. And boy, he would rather take a hot piece of lead than admit that he was wrong. But this is what happens with your ego when you get a little too good and you think you're the smartest guy in the room. Smartest girl in the room. Wait. In Canada now, we have a few different genders. We have more than just male and female right now in Canada. We have the non-binaries. and I don't know if this is happening anywhere else in the world, but it's getting a little confusing here. So I'll stop there before I get too much hate mail. Anyway, the former Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney, wins $50 million. But the problem with that is, as Beverly Ann McLaughlin has told other people who have tried to sue the Crown for wrongful prosecution, wrongful imprisonment, Beverly Ann McLaughlin has only ever had one thing to say. You cannot prosecute the prosecutor. That's Napoleonic Code. That is fascism. That's how it works. That's it. But in Brian Mulroney's case, it was okay. I don't know if she's the one that gave him permission to do it. I strongly suspect she is. And why would I say that? It's because Brian Mulroney appointed her to the Supreme Court. And you don't bite the hand that feeds you. I mean, look at it from her point of view. Studied philosophy for a long time, and then has a law degree, and becomes a judge, and becomes a professor of law, and ends up in the Supreme Court of Canada. And she always says, it's because I'm a woman. She says that, and I'm a woman. It's a woman. You know, I don't know if that's the real reason why you should put somebody there, because of their gender. I have an acquaintance who has a master's degree in law. And he didn't study anything else. He didn't study philosophy. He studied only law. It was his only thing he wanted to do. But in the case of Beverly Ann McLaughlin, two things she wanted to do. And if anybody's ever watched Monty Python's Meaning of Life, as they correctly point out, philosophy is the study of the meaning of life. That, to me, a little bit airy-fairy. Like, in whose opinion is this? Are we talking about here? Because in the Supreme Court of Canada, you see, Beverly Ann McLaughlin liked philosophy so much that at 4 p.m., I don't know if anyone knows this, but at 4 p.m., that's the end of their workday. But they all get together as a club, you see, and they have a drink. They have sherry, in fact. As far as I know, it's sherry. And Beverly Ann McLaughlin leads them in a song. The song is the Philosopher's Drinking Song. It's from Monty Python. I don't know if anybody knows this. I'm going to try and do it for you. Imagine, if you will, there's 9 judges here, all wearing their red robes, and they used to wear ermine. I don't know what they're wearing now, but it was ermine. However, here it goes. A 1, and a 2, and a 3. Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. Heidegger has a boozy beggar, he could drink you under the table. David Hume could outconsume Schopenhauer and Hegel, and Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was twice as schloss as Schlegel. There's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach about the raising of the wrist. Socrates himself was permanently pissed. John Stuart Mill, of his own free will, on half a pint of shandy was particularly ill. Plato, they say, could stick it away, half a crate of whiskey every day. Aristotle was a bugger for the bottle. Hobbes was fond of his dram, and René Descartes was a drunken fart. I drink, therefore I am. Yes, Socrates himself will be particularly missed. A lovely little drinker, but a bugger when he's pissed. So that's the song they sing every day at the Supreme Court of Canada, led by Beverly Ann McLaughlin, who may have a 4-year law degree, or a 3-year law degree, or a 2-year law degree. And to find that out, I have to have her personal written consent to forward to the University of Alberta to find out, how many years did you study doing that, and how many years did you do that, and how come it's this way, and how come it's that way? Can you explain that? She has never explained that. But she cried all through her resignation, or not resignation, but when she retired, because she's 75, she cried through the whole thing, and she said she was crying because there is no other mountain for her to climb, basically. But personally, I think there is one more mountain she could climb. Stephen Hawking has passed away. He was in the Sir Isaac Newton chair. Now it's empty. You know what? I'll bet Beverly Ann McLaughlin could fill that chair. Just in a couple of years, she'd probably have another degree with distinction. And first class that, and first class something else. I have written her letters behind me. I wrote a letter of complaint. She wrote me back. The Supreme Court of Canada had a trial for me. But I'll tell you what, it's just a letter of complaint, but they made it, it's like the size of a damn small city phone book. All these arguments that they made, in the end they just said, well, you know what, fuddle-duddle to you, pal. The system failed you, so have fun. I'm going to stop right here because the reason being is that these things make you confused. Anyway, I don't have anything else to add. I would like to do a Columbo spot, but you got to practice that kind of thing. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, if you come to Canada and you think you're going to be able to stop a trial and seize accounts until you've had your say in a courtroom of Canada, you can't. There is no judge that's going to let you do it because the judges of Canada protect the government of Canada from the people. That's a fact. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.